is The Brain Truth with Allison Jordan. Repair, renew, reclaim. And now your host, Allison Jordan.
Yes, hey. Wait a minute. What episode is this? Is this episode where am I? Are we at episode 1? Is it 111? Is it 111? I think so. I mean, we're moving so fast. How you doing? Hey, Brain Joes. Welcome to another episode of The Brain Truth with Allison Jordan on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio Station. I am so happy to be here. Last week, we had a good show. I looked back at the show last week and I had gotten up. I was in my hallway, remember? I had gotten up. I was so hot. I was having a hot flash. I had to get up. Jesse, my producer, he had a little bit of my behind me in the camera. No. So anyway, that's what happened last week. But anyway, last week was a great show. Tonight we have just a really powerful show tonight. So if you guys are with your families, I advise them to sit down. I mean, it's going to be a sensitive subject matter. So if you're a little sensitive, we will be talking to some incredible mothers who are going to talk about their story of loss with their daughters. We're going to be talking about the opioid crisis. And so if you feel it's appropriate for young children in the room, if not, I say get your teenager, get your family, get your friends, share this podcast, because we're going to be loading you up with a lot of information, resources, and education today. Okay, so let's get started with our disclaimer. The Brain Truth does not serve the purpose of providing medical treatment or therapy services, diagnosis, prevention, or cure for any physical, mental, or emotional issue, disease, or condition. As a member of our audience, you agree that the Brain Truth does not assume liability for any physical or mental disease, condition, or issue, or any other type of loss or damage due to any information shared on our broadcast. Okay, let's get to our sponsors. So our sponsors, we're so excited about them. Of course, Swabs and Swirls. That is a rapid COVID testing company. And if you guys are ever interested in getting rapid COVID testing, we're mobile and we can go to you wherever you are. So if you have an upcoming party or holiday event, or if you have family coming in, we will definitely come out there and swab you. Then there's Dr. Rita Lifestyles, Pretty 1-2 Cosmetics, which I am wearing those incredible lashes again on my eyes, and NAMI South Suburbs, River Edge Hospital, Epic Arts and Entertainment, Patch Party Club, Brain Truth Wakana, D-Champs, and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who's our newest partner, which we are super excited about. We're going to be talking to a lot of people representative there, and we're going to get into that in the next coming weeks. So if you want to become a sponsor, you can go to www.thebraintruth.com. Again, that website is www.thebraintruth.com. Many of you are watching this podcast on all your different platforms at thebraintruth.com. Or feel free to cash app us at The Brain Truth, the little money sign. And again, this is not possible without the donations and sponsorship. So please, if you feel it in your heart, if you know someone who may be interested in either being a guest or a sponsor, please go to our website and get in contact with our executive producer. I want to give a shout out to Stephanie. So today, again, like I said, it's going to be a very, very important conversation. We're going to be speaking to two mothers who lost their daughters to opioid overdoses. The opioid epidemic has taken the lives of so many. But although both of these mothers experienced devastating loss, they were able to channel their grief into something powerful and life-changing. Now, I was kind of, getting excited about this show. I had already started watching a show on Hulu. I don't know if anybody has seen the show. It's got Michael Keaton. It's called Dope Sick. It's highly rated. And when it had the tagline, "When America got hooked on a lie." That's when I was like, okay, wait a second, what is this about? So, what the show is doing, which is very profound, is exploring the epicenter of America's struggle with the opioid addiction. From the boardrooms of Purdue Pharma, and you guys can Google all this stuff about Purdue Pharma and the Slacker family, to a distressed Virginia mining company in the hallways of the DEA. Now, what I've learned about opioids, and we're going to have Dr. Gettings on here, and Sandra, who's, our incredible brain gang, to kind of go into that. But I just want to talk about this one incredible opioid called carfentanil. And it is 10 times stronger than morphine and 100 times stronger than fentanyl. And it's really not supposed to be even used for people. It's supposed to be used for like large animals, but it's out there. So what I know now is that drugs kill more people in the US than guns, car crashes, and the flu combined. And now, on top of that, I just saw today, 6 hours ago, that there's even a more powerful breed of narcotics that's accelerating in this country, and it's addiction. And it's a new drug that's hit the streets, and it's even 10 times more powerful than fentanyl. And it is another drug that I'm sure Dr. Gettys can get into. Is called nitazene. And this new drug is even more potent and powerful than opioids. I was talking to someone who works for the New York Times, and they had just did an incredible expose on the epidemic. And one of the reporters had said that opioids feel like love. It feels like love. And that's why they're deadly. It feels like love. And that they had told themselves that they had never used, this person had never used heroin, but because it sounded too good, they tried it and it gave them this warm, buttery love feeling. And as we know right now, specifically after the pandemic and this times of uncertainty and this whole economic inequality, we all are looking for this sense of comfort and this sense of love. And so we all know that we've used, I mean, I myself have used things, and we can get into that, but we really are going to be here tonight to talk to these moms who's on the front lines, and we want to be a beacon of hope and help. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention said there's over 100,000 overdose deaths just from April of 2020 to April 2021. So we want to talk about how and what we can do to be on the front lines of the education and the services. So I want to bring on one of the first moms. Her name is Aisha Bentecourt, and she founded the Brianna Land Project after losing her daughter, Brianna, in 2019. So I want her to come on. How you doing? Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to The Brain Truth. Oh my God, you look so beautiful. I like that shirt.
Thank you.
What does it say? Equality,
Acceptance and love.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you. I read your story. I saw your photos, and I just first, it's so key that we just don't bring people on here just to just talk about, what happened and all that stuff. But the fact that you are here to not only represent your daughter, but represent educating and maybe speaking to another young kid out here, right? And the Brianna Land Project, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Sure. So even while in the hospital on that day, May 2019, I felt pretty soon after I got the news that I lost my daughter, like something tell me, God tell me, what are you going to do with this pain? And almost immediately, like ideas started dropping in. Like I was heartbroken. I was a mess, but I was able, like it was just weird. It was like a supernatural thing that happened, and within a week, just a few days after her funeral, I think we had a balloon release, an education event for her, and then things just started picking up. More people became open about it and wanted to join me in bringing awareness to mental health issues and substance use disorder, because nobody really talks about it. There's such
Exactly.
stigma and shame, especially in communities of color,
Yes.
and so it was really important. Like I kind of felt like I was alone, but I had supporters. And as time went on and I was doing events or working with other moms on their events, it allowed me to reach more people even close by in our communities who did have a history in their family with addiction, or who do
Okay.
have teens that are struggling, because the drug thing has changed so much over the years.
Oh
And it's
yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get all into it. I really wanted you to come on, and then I'm going to bring the other mom, because we are a community here, and I want to bring on the entire support, and we're going to get into this really important conversation. So I just want to thank you for being here, and thank you to just be present and share your story so that we can help other mothers. Melissa Heuser, I think I said that name correctly. I apologize if it isn't, also has become an advocate after she lost her daughter, Kaylee, to an overdose in 2013. So I want to bring on Melissa. How are you, Melissa?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to The Brain Truth. And again, like I said to Miss Aisha, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. So that's just the first step. And how are you? How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good.
How are you guys doing? Are you guys okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to bring on Sandra, because Sandra is one of what we call our brain gang. And she is the core reason you guys are on this show. And I want to thank you, Sandra, because I know we talk a lot about the shows that we want to touch on and do. And we think very seriously before we start doing these shows, because, we are talking about a lot of sensitive, but our whole goal here at The Brain Truth is to really help people and educate people. So, Sandra, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Aisha, Melissa, and, your journey with them, because I know, you know them, or I think you know one of them. And talk to me a little bit about from being a therapist, when patients come with dual diagnosis, as I think, both your daughters have. And I myself is diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And how do you handle that from a therapy standpoint, and then medication and, the signs? What do we need to see? What do we need to miss? And so can you give us a little background, on your relationship with them, how you met them, and then tell me a little bit about the journey,
Well, I am so grateful to be here this evening. I know we just did a couple shows on gratefulness, and so I want to continue that and say we are grateful that you are both here. Aisha, I was grateful to be able to be part of some of the journeys that you're on with the balloon launch and continuing to educate. Aisha, we live in the same community and we're friends through friends, and just love her. She has a beautiful spirit, and have been grateful to be able to help her in whatever way I can. Now, Melissa is my best friend in the world. We've been best friends since we were 2 years old.
That's your BFF.
And we always say we couldn't do this life without each other. So that's our bond. We've been bonded since we were 2, since we lived next door to each other growing up. And we say 2 because that's the closest we could get to walking across the yard to each other, rolling down the hill, whatever we had to do to get to each other. So when I got the call in 2013 about Kaylee, it was like it was one of my children that was.
So what call did you get? Was this what happened, or was there something that happened before? What's the call? What was the call?
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, can you hear me now? I'm not sure. Can you hear me? I don't know why.
I'm sorry. It might be my.
Is it you? Can anybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? Aisha, Melissa? Oh, so Sandra, you can't hear me.
I can't hear you, but I'll just go ahead. A couple of things I wanted to say, especially one of the things that you had said a few minutes ago about that the feeling that you get from these opioid use is a rush of love. And that's one of the reasons why there's such a draw to the use of this these drugs for people who are experiencing mental health issues. People with substance disorders are 2 times more likely to have a mood disorder or anxiety. And half the people that have some sort of mental illness will end up with a substance use disorder sometime in their life. And 3 people who have mental illness or have anxiety and depression mostly are 3 times more likely to misuse opioids. And, the thought behind that is, okay, what access do they have? And the interesting part is that 16% of Americans have a mental health disorder that falls into depression or anxiety. Yet half of the opioid prescriptions are given to people who have a mental health disorder. So the numbers are very offsetting. And so that's what happens, is that you might get some Vicodin when you have a surgery, right? And then depression or anxiety are part of your makeup or something that you might be experiencing. And because that feeling becomes what you earlier said, like this rush of love, then they continue to use that past the time of necessity. And I know Dr. Gettings is here and she can talk more specifically about the drugs and their impact. But for sure, that's what the draw is, the relief, that it provides.
So can you not hear me, or you can, Sandra? Sandra can't hear us.
I can't hear you. I can't hear her.
Let me bring on Dr. Gettings. So Dr. Gettings, of course, is our Brain Gang member, who is our in-house psychiatrist. And I want to bring her on because now we can really, hi there, Dr. Gettings, get into the opioid crisis. What is an opioid? What's the difference? Now we've got this new drug out there. Break it down from that standpoint. And then, let's talk to the moms about, what their journey was like and how we can sort of educate the public on this not happening again. There's Dr. Gettings. We can't hear Dr. Gettings.
You can hear me now. Sorry. I'm hearing myself. Hey,
y'all. I don't know what's happening. This is the first time. Okay. There's Dr. Gettings.
You hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to say that I really appreciate moms coming on tonight and talking about their own personal journeys as it relates to opioid use and also what we know is an epidemic in this country. Being a psychiatrist on the front lines, working with people every day with different mental health diagnoses that we already described, dual diagnoses, and also with substance abuse, we have seen a huge surge, a huge increase in overdose deaths. And I really think that what we have to do is educate people about the dangerousness of these medications. As Sandra mentioned, a lot of people gain access to medications for many different things without us really appropriately assessing their risk for substance abuse and for substance dependency. And we have to understand that all medications are not made equal, right? That's why we have the controlled substance categories. And that's why certain medications carry black box warnings. But when it comes to opioids, you have to realize that when it comes to taking anything into the body, how it affects your brain will determine your risk of abusing the substance, reusing the substance, craving the substance, withdrawing from the substance. A lot of people who abuse opioids, they don't just continue because they want to. They have literally become physically dependent. And when you are physically dependent on a substance and it's causing you to feel sick, you have to continue to use it before you can be detoxed appropriately. So when we talk about opioids, they are substances that act on the opioid receptors in our brain. For those of you who don't know what the opioid receptors do, they allow you to feel that warm, buttery feeling that Allison just described. It's that reduction of pain, the relaxation, the euphoria, and it literally makes you feel good, really good. Okay. It is working in your brain through a system called the reward pathway, or what we call the mesolimbic system, which the main structure is the nucleus accumbens. Okay. And that's your reward pathway. And when you have triggered that pathway, you will release dopamine and you will start to have cravings. The really dangerous part is that you will develop a tolerance. So you start off using a certain amount, but to get that same euphoric response, now you have to use more.
It's like chasing that
and it doesn't take a long time to develop this tolerance. And we have to do better as medical professionals with educating patients about the risks of these medications, right? It can't just be at the end of a commercial, a bunch of fast talking for 5 seconds, whatever, right?
We have right underneath. You're like, say, hey, say that loud and say that slow.
Exactly. This is what you're being prescribed. And so that's kind of the role when it comes to the prescribing. But we also know that there are illicit opioids, right? We've got these synthetic opioids that are being created and sold on the street that are so powerful, synthetic fentanyl. As a psychiatrist working through COVID, we saw huge surges in overdose. And that's why the FDA has really, really changed some of these black box warnings, not only even with opioids, but also with benzodiazepines, medications like Xanax and clonazepam. And you know, for me, it has really become a culture that is so concerning when you hear it in songs. And it's become popular, right? To talk about herpes and talk about Addies. And you know, we cannot glorify this. We cannot promote this like this is okay. It's literally causing a surge in overdose. I'm going to give you the exact numbers. 2019, about 70,000 people overdose. We are up to 100,000. Between 2020 and 2021. And since 1999, 841,000 people. And my true belief as a mental health professional is the majority of these people, they do not know the danger. And even it's not just the youth. I was talking to you, Allison. It's also elderly. You have so many of our elderly population that are dependent on pain relief. And they don't recognize that if I take one more Percocet or if I take one more Oxy, I may not wake up. Well, the reason for that is we all have what's called a brain stem. Your brain stem is responsible for autonomic function, the things that you don't think about, you don't control. When you go to sleep, you're not focused on breathing, right? But these medications bind to receptors in the brainstem, and it literally cuts off your natural drive to breathe. Right?
So, I mean, I'm a person, I don't like medicine. And when I was in the psychiatric hospital, of course, when you are super depressed, and I don't know, moms, I'm sure I can't speak for you, but depression hurts. It's debilitating. And all you want to do is not feel that pain. And so when you think back, you know, and I want you to kind of like first tell me a little bit about, you know, your daughters. I mean, let's talk about like who they were, you know, because I know that this is not their fault, just like anybody else who just don't want to feel the pain. And it's just unfortunate that we don't have the education that all we're doing is like, okay, I'll just take this and it's going to make me feel better. And then things happen. So I just want to hear from maybe you, Mom, Aisha, tell me about your daughter. Like, I just want to hear about her first.
Brianna was just sunshine. She was a beautiful girl. Ever since she was little, she had like a charismatic spirit, very open, very loving. She was my most affectionate child. I have 3, but she was the one. She was like my best friend. I couldn't tell her she was my best friend, you know, because I'm her mom. But I was a young parent, so we grew up together. She was hilarious. She was smart. She was tiny but mighty. That's how I describe her. She was tiny but mighty. She had tremendous leadership skills. So I was the first in my group of friends to have a child, and Brianna was that girl that all the other young daughters looked up to. And when she passed, it was traumatic for so many other young girls in my circle, who just couldn't believe it and are still dealing with it on a daily basis. I'm telling you. And Brianna was well loved in school by her teachers. She was very sharp. Things came very natural to her.
Okay.
She was just everything. I remember saying to myself, wow, she really is everything that I wish I would have been, at her age. She was just really, really sharp. And she even spoke at her high school graduation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she ended up leaving my house when she was 17, her senior year, but she still was able to get herself, do all her FAFSA by herself to get into a college. And then she got so many acceptance letters and scholarships to multiple colleges. She was really, it was almost like two different lives. She was, she was just such a strong person. And then there was this secret pain and this secret, condition that she had that we wouldn't have thought of. She was a reader. She was a writer. She was super creative. She was the best big sister, that her sister could have had. Her sister doesn't know her dad, but Brianna stepped up and she would just take on that role and take leadership over her sister. And they were just so incredibly close, despite a big age difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's unfortunate about the stigmas and, all the things that make these young kids, really not able to just say, look, I'm not doing okay. And so, I'm glad that you have the Brianna Land and your help educating. Melissa, tell us about Kaylee, if you don't mind talking about her. And then I think we kind of left off with Sandra. I'm sorry about your sound. You can hear us now, Sandra? Can she hear us? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, tell us, Melissa, how you met Sandra. You guys are BFFs. What happened when she said she received that phone call?
Yeah.
Kind of left us there and then her sound went out. So just give us a little snippet on,
I'm sitting on another computer, so I can hear you, but it's a little delayed.
Kaylee was 19 when she passed away. She was a high honor roll student, and she was a wonderful artist, very smart. And her addiction led to her passing from overdose. And I think that some of the problem is and was at the time that there's a stigma, and at the time that this happened with her was in 2013.
Okay.
A lot of people were not talking about it at the time, so I made it sure that I was not embarrassed about the way she passed. It was not anyone's fault. And I wish there was more education for younger children in the schools. And I think that's where a lot of this could benefit for children. I spoke at a lot of schools at the time, a lot of meetings about drugs and heroin and opiates. And I think that it needs to start with children at a younger age, because it is become the in thing, and it's okay to use these drugs, and it needs to be started at an early age, I think.
I agree. When I grew up, we
just knew better, and now these kids are doing it like, oh, here, try this or try that, and it's okay, and it's not okay.
Not okay.
But the education really isn't there also for these kids at a young age. So I think that needs to be addressed.
I agree. I think we all agree. When we were growing up, we had Stranger Danger, we had Officer Finley, we had Scared Straight. They didn't care about this information. They were inundating us with the dangers. And if what I've learned in this past, and Dr. Gettings, you can tell us your thoughts on how young should we be talking about this. But when I did the research, I literally I was in tears. I was blown
Yeah.
away. You go on YouTube and just type it in. It's endless videos of parents talking about their child that just went to a party or, you know.
Well, a lot of times it's the fact that these kids are introduced to these drugs for the first time without ever even hearing about it or what it is. And they try it because they don't know or they've never heard about it.
They don't have a
And-
chance.
Right.
They said in one is that drug what is it, carfentanil, that a small little like powdery, like a little bit minuscule, undetected by the eye, you can inhale it, you can just be somewhere and it's in the room and you'll die, it'll kill you. So Dr. Gettings, you know, how young is too young, and what can we do to, as a collective? We're right here, we're talking about it. You know us, we're the brain gang. You guys are part of your official gangbang, brain gang members, and we want to go out here and we want to like show people and tell people. So what can we do?
Well, 100%, I agree. It all starts with education. And I truly believe as young as you can understand what may harm you, you should know about it. Just like you tell your kid, don't touch a hot stove. Okay. And the thing that really irritates me is that we're sitting here talking about, well, how young is too young? But yet I'm sorry, again, this culture, and especially driven, unfortunately, by music, I see a lot. They're name dropping these pharmaceutical drugs on a regular basis. And you think about kids that really try to just model after or mimic things that they hear and see. So why do we have it presented to them in this one setting, but we're not doing it in the responsible setting? Why aren't we teaching kids about the risk of addiction? Because if you have somebody who's super innocent, never heard anything, you know, of course we all hear drugs are bad, right? But there's still a difference between the damage that drinking too much or doing some other things can cause versus one time using something and you die. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about drugs that are purposely being made, especially the illicits, that are so potent, where you don't stand a chance. So I say we need to talk more, not only to children in schools, elementary schools, starting there, about how their body works, right? And we can go into that, but also how their body can be affected by substances that are known as toxins. And that's how I was started. And there's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with talking about that. So when you do come across it later, whether it be from a relative, a song, a party, or whatever, you already know the risk that you're facing at this point.
But you're up against the government. You're up against, you know, when I watched that movie, that series I'm talking about, Dope Sick, where I was hooked on a lie. You've got, you know, I'm hooked on a lie. Like they were a legitimate pharmaceutical company making the stuff. They knew in the back rooms what it was going to do, and they were making money. Their whole thing was, we're going to be rich. And so when you're talking about going into schools, educating this and that, do you really think they're going to let us? Do you really think, you know, it's a big business? And,
and let's be real, it is a big business. And along with the opioid epidemic has also come a lot of training for doctors, and also a lot of approval of medications that, you know, in the past it was methadone, and now we have Suboxone and now Trexone and all these other medications that can be used where it's part of what we call the medication assisted treatment program, right? Mm-hmm. So you are now addicted and dependent to opioids, and now we'll give it to you in a controlled environment, you know? So that's another show. But
that's a whole nother show, because I talked to a drug dealer who said, if it kills you, he's the number one. It's like, oh my God, it kills some people. Everybody's going to line up tomorrow like it's Christmas, because now all they're going to do is cut it, you know, make it a little weaker, because they know it kills people, which means, oh, it's the best, and we're going to bring it down a notch.
I just say one thing that really, this is not coming from a doctor. This is just a personal perspective, right? I grew up in the 1990s, right? What do teenagers do? They listen to music, they hang out, they go to parties. Every song in the hip hop culture that we would listen to was, you know, smoking marijuana, drinking. You
the syrup, whatever?
Nope, I wasn't in the syrup era. So
that was my era then. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm just saying, like, fast forward and imagine being a teenager in 2021 and you are being motivated or encouraged to do something that is literally lethal, that you don't know anything about, but it's been normalized. Like, oh, it's the thing to do.
Right.
We're gonna go to the
Yeah.
party, we're gonna sip a little lean, we're gonna pop a few pills. I mean, we're literally living in a drug epidemic of synthetic pill popping drugs. People don't know what they're taking. Okay. And that's why we're seeing these surging numbers. We're also seeing these surging numbers because, as we mentioned, and as Sandra mentioned, when it comes to mental health and when people have different diagnoses, you just said we're talking about pain relievers. We're talking about people with PTSD, depression. And I mean, yes, it is a quick way to feel really, really good. And now you're just going down this slippery slope where your dependence level can literally change in a week. In a week, your tolerance can change in a week. So now you need more and you need more. And every time you suppressing your respiratory drive, just that much more.
Yes.
It is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people who, and I think I mentioned this to you in a conversation maybe about Xanax and liquor, mixing those two. Well, I mean, you just go to the drugstore and they just say, you have any questions? Okay. I mean, they don't really, they're handing you over a narcotic basically. And there should be a room that you go in the back and go, okay, sit down. How are you? I mean, why can't the assessment start at the pharmacy level? Why can't the assessment start when the doctor hands you your prescription? Now they just say, okay, I'm gonna call you in something. You'll be fine, to help you sleep.
I will say what has been done as far as regulation to this point is every state, for the most part, has implemented the drug monitoring program. But again, that's if you're getting medications from a prescribing doctor. That is not going to monitor you if you're getting synthetic fentanyl off 59th Street, right? So that the point is, you have these protocols that have kind of been put in place. But like you said, when you go to the pharmacy, all you're getting is a pamphlet. Who's reading that?
A staple to a back of a thing, and then you just rip it open and keep it. No, it should electrocute me when I open it. Like, oh, let me read this.
Yeah. Aisha wants to say something.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Aisha.
I'm going to join Melissa because I cannot hear you.
You guys are together?
We're still
Yeah.
Drive to her house.
She's been visiting
How
me
did that
from-
magical thing happen?
She's been visiting me from Florida.
Oh my God. Okay.
Back to Florida, Melissa.
Okay. So Aisha, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So no, that's okay. So I wanted to say I have a bottle of Alprazolam, which is the alternative name for Xanax.
Yeah.
And it literally says to take 1 per day. The problem is Xanax being a benzo. You guys touched on so much that's so key. And I thank you so much for everything you've said so far and the education you provided so far, because it directly relates to the death of my daughter. So because of what happened to her, I know better than to take my Xanax every day.
Right.
I try never to take them. But my daughter, she was prescribed the Xanax for her sleeplessness and anxiety before she was even 20 years old. So, and then she learned how to doctor shop. At some point, she went to our primary care physician and said, hey, I think we should up my amount of Xanax. And my doctor, she had been our doctor for like 15 years, told her, you know what, why don't we try to get to the root of the problem?
Yes.
And she never saw my daughter again. My daughter was out trying to find it another way. During this time, my daughter also was diagnosed with chronic pancreatitis. Because of that, guess what that did? That opened her up to painkillers. Her being a journaler, she would journal the types of medication, pain relievers that they were giving her in the hospital, how much, who was giving it to her, how it made her feel, so that she could go back to certain nurses and ask certain things or certain doctors to give it to her. I had no idea until after she passed away that my daughter was actually, because once they're 18, even if they're on your health insurance, guess what? You don't have access to their medical records.
Sure don't.
So I had no idea that my daughter was going in saying she had pain to the hospitals, getting treated with pain relievers, and then checking herself out against medical advice. So we had two things going on with her. We had the benzos, the Xanax, which kids were doing pretty regularly. She knew that if she couldn't get a prescription, somebody was going to sell her bars. and she has everything still in her phone. So I could see it. I can see it all. I can see all the people she was able to reach out to. And so she had the benzos. And I think the benzodiazepines are, I think they should be just talked about as much as the opioids. Because
we could talk about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Can I mention that just because that's a really good point. And because of 2020, when COVID hit and so many overdoses were happening, they started looking at the combination of benzos with opioids, because at first they were just looking at opioids. And because they see this direct correlation in the combination, like you said, real quick, benzos and why they're so dangerous with alcohol, Allison, is because they literally work in the brain similar to alcohol. They release a neurotransmitter known as GABA, which causes us to relax. And when you combine it with alcohol, you get a combined effect, right? Which is very dangerous. They too cause the individual to develop tolerance very fast, just like opioids, okay? And so for her to have been introduced to that, well, first, to your point, they have since 2020, the FDA put a new black box warning on benzodiazepines in order for providers to stop prescribing this, like you said, on an ongoing chronic basis, to be used every day, multiple times a day. It's not supposed to be used like that. But the problem is a lot of people are now dependent. I have patients come to me every day here in Florida, already taking Alprazolam, already taking clonazepam. I've been taking it for years, and nobody's ever told them the risk of dependency, the fact that they can withdraw or anything like that. So I want to ask you, do you feel when she first got that prescription, what was her education?
There wasn't any, just the same education that I got when I got my prescription, which was like, here, this will help.
Yeah, like they do all the time. I know we had some questions that came up on the screen. And again, if you guys want to call in, I don't know if anybody wants to call in, but we are taking calls at 708-545-2446, 708-545-2446. If you want to make a comment or ask any of our guests anything. Adrian Alvarado, most children are already exposed to drug use every day just by being home. So awareness is key for the understanding and the harmful addiction and effects they pose to them later. Sandra, you want to say something to that?
And and I think that is true. And I think that just even goes back to the point where if you're getting a prescription, kids don't realize that it's dangerous. And family history of it, or oh, my mom's been on this pill forever, so why is it bad? I think that education is so key. And what's happening now, because I work in an emergency room part-time, and if we think somebody's medication seeking, we look in the prescriptions that they've gotten from other facilities, from other hospitals, to make sure that they're not coming just to get prescription medication. I had a man one day who we knew he was medication seeking, and he said, I just need something till I get to see my psychiatrist. And I said, okay, well, when's your appointment? Who's your psychiatrist? I called to confirm, and
good for you.
It wasn't true. It wasn't accurate. He was just
that is extraordinary.
Jumping. And so we're really trying. I know that emergency rooms for sure are trying. And, part of the problem is not all emergency rooms are nobody's on the same system, right? So you can't, we do have some local providers that use the same system, so we can go in and look at what happened at St. James, what happened at South Suburban, but Ingalls is not in that system. So we don't know what happened there. So we're just kind of making guesses, and, but our ER docs are very clear. Like if somebody's first coming in with pain, you're getting some Tylenol, some 800 milligram Tylenol. You're not getting Vicodin. You're not getting a pain medication that could cause addiction. So
Sandra, I'm sorry to cut you off. You said there was like a universal database or something, or how did you
look? We had ways in the hospital, like we can go and look at the recent prescriptions somebody might have picked up or have been prescribed.
Can look. Each state has a monitoring system now. In Florida, they even add on to that system your overdose risk. In
Wow.
Illinois, it's called the Illinois Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. We are required before giving someone a controlled substance to look up and make sure they're not doctor shopping, as Aisha mentioned, because that's what people do, and that's what they've created to keep the paper trail. Let's see where you've been. So you can see what the pharmacy dispensed, what date, who the doctor was, and all of that. And I've had people sitting right in front of me. Nope, I haven't seen anybody. And you look them up, and they have seen 5 people in the last 5 days. Okay, so it's the system is needed, and the government now knows. It's the substance is so they're gonna seek it. They're going to seek it until they get treatment. And the people who are physically addicted, they can't just stop. They can't. They have to be weaned off. They need to be treated medically in order to discontinue those substances.
Absolutely. And the other thing, I just want to say one thing about that is that the other part of the education is when somebody goes to treatment, the education around when they leave, if they relapse. Like we want to think that everybody is going to be, cured when they go, but not always. Relapse is huge. And when they relapse, they go and they use the same amount of the substance that they used prior to.
Aisha, we had something. I'm sorry.
And when that happens, you can't, your body can't handle that same dosage that you didn't have in your system for the last 15 days or 20 days or however long you stayed in treatment for. That's what happened with Melissa's daughter. She went back and used the same level of substance that she used prior to treatment, and her body couldn't handle it. And that's how she
didn't have tolerance anymore.
Yeah, you don't. Wow. And people don't understand that. And I'm not sure if treatment facilities are able to, because especially if somebody leaves AMA, are they really able to educate you? Like, hey, on the way out the door, don't use, the same amount you used when you came in here. I don't know that there's, the ability to do that type of education. So it has to be done in forums like this, and just has to be talked about so that people know that, because, likelihood of somebody going into treatment for an opioid abuse one time and coming out and never using again is probably very low. I don't have the statistics, and I don't know if Dr. Gettings, you have them, but we know that very low success rate of first time treatment.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I was going to say,
I'm sorry. I think Aisha wanted to say something.
Sorry, I do, because my grief brain will make me forget really quickly.
Okay. So, I saw you going like this, and I was like, okay, wait, hold on.
Because there's a lot of great points that Sandra brought up, and some things that I want to mention, because there's so many improvements that can be made on different levels. One of them is just like going to rehab, coming out, and then having the same tolerance. You're thinking you have the same tolerance as a disservice to yourself and a risk to yourself. It's the same thing with people who have gone to prison, and they come out and they do the same amount. And I know many moms whose kids went to prison, came out, tried the same amount, and they were gone. In addition to that, I didn't know this until within the past year or so. If a paramedic or the emergency, if the emergency department or services pick up somebody and that person is revived by Narcan, not all medical facilities are then treating that overdose or that person who suffered the overdose for an opioid overdose. So for example, a patient may come to, right, and they say, oh, well, I just did cocaine. If that person only did cocaine, there's no way that opioid reversal agent is going to bring them back to life. And for some reason, not all hospitals are recognizing that. So they could say, hey, before you go, do you know that you didn't have just cocaine? You couldn't have possibly just had cocaine because you were Narcan, and that's what brought you back. So, there's things that can be improved there. The other thing with the mental health issues, my grandma died in 2015, and she was really close with Brianna. Brianna declined pretty quickly after that. She had a son and she had postpartum depression. So in addition to the anxiety, we had the postpartum depression, a very volatile relationship, and then the breakup. And she began going from house to house because she would get violent. And then she would just, not be able to stay at that person's house. So she started cutting herself a few years before she died. And that ended up with her in, a psychiatric ward. And then the following year, she had suicidal ideation and a plan. So she was taken in. And it was during that visit in May 2018 that she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So the problem with that, and an opportunity for improvement within the system, is that they treated her for the borderline. I remember the psychiatrist telling me, you know what, your daughter has borderline. What this means is if she threatens to kill herself, call the ambulance so that she knows that you're taking her seriously, but she's never going to kill herself. So they treated that, right? But they didn't. They gave her the option to treat her substance use. So they didn't, they weren't mandated to work them together. So even if she wasn't going to kill herself because of her mental health condition, her substance use was like a slow suicide over the last few years before she died.
And that's so true.
Wow.
When people present with a mental health issue and we feel that they're at risk of hurting themselves, we can petition and certify them and send them in for treatment against their will. If somebody comes in with a substance abuse disorder, you cannot do that. All substance abuse treatment has to be voluntary.
And I was going to ask you that, Sandra, because I know you're a compassionate therapist. I've seen it. I mean, I came to your office. I could have stayed there for hours. She was just showing me just some unique ways of really touching people and getting them to open up. And I mean, I know that's your best friend you're sitting next to. I think it's even better that you're sitting next to her. Tell me, I think when your mic went bad or whatever, you were going to tell me the story of her beautiful daughter. And, as a therapist, has it changed the way that you see patients and see things in a different way?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is it increased my level of compassion. I'm already compassionate, but I had to do some things after that because I felt somewhat responsible. I said, I almost thought about leaving the field because I said, if I couldn't help my best friend, how am I going to help somebody else? And we worked really hard. We got her into treatment. We did all the things that we needed to do. I had to take a break and, get my own little therapy for a minute to make sure that I was, staying where I needed to stay because.
Well, that was one of the first things you said.
Yeah, that was probably one of the first things I said.
I should have been there. I can't believe I wasn't there more for the situation.
Yeah.
But as we talk, we don't know though.
We didn't know. We had no idea. We had no idea. And so, especially when Melissa didn't even know the underlying issues that were really going on until after she wasn't here. And she had access to her journals and her writings. And you could see that there was reason for her to be as sad and depressed and really searching for some healing. It's unfortunate that she wasn't able to talk about that, and I think that's why she left treatment. She left treatment early, and I think it was because it was starting to get to the root of the problem of what was going on. And as soon as she started to open up and talk about that, she ran. She said, "I'm good now. I'm okay. I got this under control." Right, which is why I said one stint in treatment isn't going to do it.
That's right.
It's most likely not going to do it. And treatment is not all the, how they have it. I almost don't like the treatment shows that they sometimes have on TV where they have the famous people go to, rehab or whatever. That's not really how it is. And, the expectation of treatment might be different than what it is. Treatment's hard.
Treatment's hard.
Treatment's hard. And so that's why it's important. And that's why I dug in and stayed doing what I do, because I know that you have to have somebody who cares. and is going to dig in there and stick in there with you no matter what. And
That's
so,
right.
therapists, we carry a lot of weight, but if you're not going to stick in there and be a compassionate person, you shouldn't be a therapist. But therapists, we have to, really legitimately care about the people because you're going to get no's. You're going to get people like, that say, no, I got this under control. I don't need that. Or compartmentalize and only want to talk about the mental health side, or only want to talk about the substance abuse side, and not talk about the dual diagnosis. And you can't really treat one without the other, without treating the other.
I'm so happy you stay with it. And I'm sure Kaylee's happy that you are. And I'm sure is not blaming you. I mean, you are truly an incredible therapist, Sandra. I've seen it. And I know, again, Sandra has the owner and founder of Tranquil Journey in Flossmoor, Illinois. I always mix that.
It's Flossmoor, yes.
Illinois. And she has what it stands for, Tranquil Journey. As soon as you walk in, you're like, oh.
And Melissa is actually my practice manager. So she manages my practice for me.
Okay, well,
so I'm part of it too.
So she's part of it too.
Well, that's even more profound, Melissa, is that you guys are working together to change every day. What an amazing.
I talked to a lot of people on the phone.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah, they were like, oh, well, I have this going on and that going on. I go, well, I can relate. So a lot of times it's in relation to the same kind of issues. So it's
she's the first voice you hear when you call Tranquil Journey.
Yeah.
So do you ever see a young kid and see your daughter in them and just have this opportunity to really I can do this. I can, and do you feel like Kaylee is that's kind of her purpose? Like you're out there just saving lives every day. And that's, I didn't put that together. That is phenomenal. I love you guys. I love your place. I want to come back and visit, but I think we had some questions and comments. Jesse, I don't know if you want to put those back up. I know we were just engaged in this conversation. We're not ignoring what you're asking or saying. So if you want to bring those back up, Jesse, you can. Rhonda, I agree, Dr. Phil. For one is one, I feel is not accurate to mental health and other therapeutic issues that people go through. Not sure I understand what she said there. Do you, Dr. Gettings?
I'm not 100% sure. Was she commenting on Dr. Phil speaking on this topic, or I think that's what I'm getting, but I'm not sure I understand it fully either.
Okay, I worked for a doctor's office and seen firsthand how in early 2001, doctors were writing them, I guess, the prescriptions due to pharmaceutical cashback. So basically, the doctors were getting paid to write, and many doctors went to jail over this. Please watch Michael Keaton's show on Netflix, Dope. Michael Keaton is Dope Sick, and it's on Netflix. It's on Hulu as well, which is about how the pharmaceutical companies got rich off of these medications. Yes, Tammy Stone. I mention that. Is that someone who just called in? Okay. Again, call us 708-545-2446. I think you were looking up. Oh, wait, we have something. I am happy for her recovery journey. Okay. Thank you, Rhonda. We didn't quite understand the last comment you made. Sorry about that. I think Dr. Gettings had looked up some statistics. I think when things were going, I don't know. I don't want to miss anything. Sandra had asked you something. But I wanted to ask, what is this nitrazine stuff that I found out today? That's even, what is going on? Here's my question. How do they get this stuff on the street? Is it, I know it may not be a dumb question to y'all, but to me, how does it,
how do drugs magically appear in the hood?
Yeah, if it's right. If it's a prescription, I'm confused. How does Junebug on 95th? How is he getting it?
And not to say that drugs are just in the hood, because they're not, but I y'all know what I mean.
Where's that? Like when you talk about an epidemic, I understand like marijuana, even though it's legal, you can grow it, but it's the synthetic. Somebody somewhere making it, right? Like. When I was talking to the guy I told you who was a drug dealer, he was saying how he had met this kid that was like a scientist that actually worked in the field of medicine, that he paid on the side, would go in a little ghetto house or whatever and help him cut it and fix it. And, like, are you kidding me? So then how do we help if they're all working hand in hand because it's a money-making thing? I guess I'm sorry. My mind is just getting blown because I just don't
Right?
know.
So
I don't mean to sound doom, but really, like, what the heck are we gonna do? What we gonna do, y'all?
Educate. That's the best thing we can
that's
do.
all you can do. I mean, you have to
Educate.
tell people, like, literally, you're being duped, right?
Absolutely.
People are out here making money, and they've
Yeah.
done that since the beginning of time, and they're finding new ways to do it, and they'll do it at the expense of your life. So,
Yeah.
and you just have to be straight up with your kids, and you have to talk to them. And, you know, as a child psychiatrist and working with families every day, and especially when it comes to adolescence is hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's a stage in life where the child is supposed to be pulling away from you. They're supposed to be developing their own identity. And so, you know, it's like you could burden yourself with the guilt of just, you know, am I close enough? Am I checking in enough? Do I know what my kid is really doing? And it's still hard, and it's so many other influences. So I think we just need to keep it very clear with our children that we live in a time where, let's be real, drugs have changed. Nitazene is, if I'm pronouncing that right, is a synthetic opioid.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it has evolved. Okay,
It's on a whole other level. When you're talking about Christine, I want Christine Reed. Bring that Christine Reed comment back up. I'm sorry, but when you're talking about these little bitty, I mean, little bitty powdery, like, can't what? Anyway, Christine Reed. I relate to this show so deeply. I wish I had seen it from the beginning. You can watch it on thebraintruth.com or go on my Facebook or go on YouTube or go to Intellectual Radio or iHeart. We're on everything. I probably missed it or it was addressed earlier, but isn't the
Suboxone
just as bad as the opiate addiction itself? Shouldn't mental health therapy be mandated in the treatment? Both Sandra and Dr. Gettings can answer that.
Yes.
Well,
go ahead, Sandra.
There is, you know, mental health obviously is part of the treatment. And I think that goes back to what we say, what can we do? The what can we do is we have to address the underlying issue. Like, yes, there's a difference between like going to a party and using something, but when it becomes an addiction, it really so many times is hiding and self-medicating something else. If we don't really address exactly what the Brain Truth is about, which is mental health, it's not going to stop because they're going to look for something else. And this does it 10 times more effective. Let me try that.
Right.
So Dr. Gettings, you can talk about the Suboxone.
Yeah, so the Suboxone, like we were just talking. So when you look at psychiatry, right, from a medical perspective, that's the specialty of medicine that really looks at emotional health, mental health, mood disorders, whatever, right? But there are different specialties. So one of the specialties of psychiatry is addiction psychiatry. And like Sandra said, you can't address addiction without addressing mental health. You should be teaching a person why they are prone to addiction and what they need to do in order to prevent that from being an ongoing issue in their life. And you also have to address any other diagnosis that is present. A lot of people are self-medicating for untreated things, trauma that happened in childhood, abuse, losses, grief, etc. You know, it's easier to self-medicate. To answer the question, you know, methadone was the initial medication that was prescribed in order to treat opioid addiction. And now medications have changed, and we have Suboxone, and we have medications that will actually prevent a person from abusing it or overdosing on it. So I think the question was, is Suboxone addictive? At the end of the day, this is a substance that's being used in place of, right, another opioid. So you're getting it prescribed by a doctor, typically an addiction psychiatrist, but you don't have to be. You can do the Suboxone training and maybe bring that comment back up, because I kind of took a look, and the person is saying that they feel that it's a free high that the government has created to also make money, and instead they need to figure out why they want to get high. What's the underlying reason? And I too, as a mental health professional, to be honest with you, I trained in the VA. I trained at Jesse Brown VA during my residency at University of Illinois. I worked in a methadone clinic, and you do sometimes feel like, did we really fix it? Like, okay, so they were doing it on the street. Right. Now we're giving them a controlled amount. Now you prescribing it. Now you get paid. Now, okay, I don't know. So that being said, that's the treatment right now, right? And so Suboxone is a combination of two medications, buprenorphine and also now naloxone. I always mix those two up. And it is the new medication-assisted treatment solution to opioid dependency.
Yeah, go back to Rhonda. You said something, and I think Christine responded to your answer, Dr. Gannings. What was that Christine Reed comment? Keep them up until we address it. Okay. Exactly. I thought so. Someone close to me is only being medically treated, but the program isn't addressing the mental health problem. Exactly.
Yeah. So what should be happening is that person should have a combination of treatment to address their substance dependency, and the long-term goal should be for them not to have to use a replacement, if you will, a Suboxone, a methadone, what have you. That's should be step one, right? But we know what happens is it ends up being, in a lot of cases, a chronic treatment. I see people who've been on Suboxone for years. They have no intention of stopping. And so we definitely, I don't think, have fixed the issue by replacing the substance with another substance that they're dependent on and that is now being prescribed by a licensed medical doctor. That's my
perspective. I think it's also important to note that just like there's many avenues to substance use disorder and addiction and death, there's also several possible ways on how to reduce your risk of death. So although Suboxone may not be the because clearly, especially after everything we've learned, and again, watch DopeSick, how do we trust the government for certain things? I get that. But what might work for one person may not work for another. So there's, it's this issue is so complex that it's that if only it was just a black and white thing, if it only was that clear. But it's important to just understand some people will be able to do it with the Suboxone and go through the program the way it should work. Whereas other people right. I know people that are in recovery from the hard drugs, but they still smoke marijuana, and that's what's working for them. And we're in a society that we really have to start opening up our minds to the different possible solutions. And I think for us who are older, we have our own mindset about what drugs are like, or what we were trained a certain way on what drugs were like and how they should be handled. Even me doing the tough love thing with my daughter. No, we have to expand our ideas concerning this and be a little bit more accepting and loving, to really look at the person and love them through it properly.
And that's where, we're always, our shows are always so good that we be running out of time. It could be like a 9-hour show. We still have so much more to say. So I really want both moms, just one, we can start back with you, Aisha, and just, give us some final thoughts on, coming here today, maybe look in the camera and talk to another young person and say something to them that maybe, could shake them or move them, or a mom that's right now struggling like you. I know we want to put up some information. I don't know if we have it about Brianna Land Project. I don't know if you want to provide anybody with a website or anything that's coming up, or any way we can donate to anything, but give us some last words about Brianna Land and what you want people to take away from you coming here today.
So I would first like to just address the moms or the parents, and just for the moms who are struggling through substance use disorder with their kids right now, you are doing the best you can with what you have. So I encourage you to continue to educate yourself, to treat the issue as a legit medical condition. I have another daughter who has an autoimmune disease. I studied that. I wanted to know how to best treat what she had going on. And as parents, we really need to stop looking at our kids and saying, oh, they're just being defiant, and really start operating from that parental love, that mother bear instinct that we should have, that we do have, and just embrace our kids, because at the rate these kids are going, you will regret it if you
Mm.
don't. And you know, grief to me looks like, you know, on those bad days when those waves hit,
Mm-hmm.
um, where the only reason I'm able to go on is because I have two other kids and a grandson now who are going to need me.
Mm-hmm.
And in helping other people or trying to help other people, that is honoring my daughter in some way and the many other kids that are just like her. So I really just encourage the parents to educate themselves. And for the kids, if you are dealing with trauma, if you are dealing with secrets, if there has been
Yeah.
a cycle in your family of dysfunction, please reach out to a trusted person, whether it be a teacher, you know, a nurse. You are always welcome to reach out to me. I am with the Brianna Land Project. You can find us on Facebook, the Brianna Land Project. It's BREANALAND Project. Or you can shoot me an email at briannalandforever@gmail.com. I am more than happy to talk with you or to send a young person some support, or to be a safe place where somebody can talk to and get resources, because there are resources out there that people just don't know of yet.
Awesome. That was really beautiful. It touched me right here. If she went too fast, go to thebraintruth.com. I think you can see Sandra Anderson's photo on there. Click on that and get in touch with these two guests today. And Melissa, same thing, you know, let us hear, you know, what you want us to take away, and maybe some young person or mother or family watching. And then Sandra, you can follow with what you guys are doing in your practice personally, and what we can do to make this happen. And then Dr. Gettings, of course, I'm going to have you close it out.
Okay.
I would just have to say, don't think it can't happen to you. Talk to your kids, educate your kids as much as possible. Just talk to them about things that maybe they're not talking about at school, or you think they are and they're not. That's pretty much what I've told people is that it can happen and it is happening. So be aware and talk to your kids, educate.
I just want to say to Aisha and Melissa, thank you so much for bringing your stories here to the Brain Truth so that we can continue this message. I just love both of you all. And I will be here for you all, both of you all, no matter what, and support your project, Aisha, for sure. And, you know, anybody that's listening, make sure that you are doing a check, not only on your children, your brothers, your sisters, your
Yes.
mothers, yourself, right? That you're looking in the mirror and saying, do I need some help, right? I might have had some anxiety. I started taking that Xanax and I find myself taking it every day now. And I'm really probably only need to take it once in a while, or maybe I need to put it down altogether. Let's be real about where we're at with this. Let's not pretend it's something else. And, you know, I think historically we have to be real about this. I know that people look at, and this might sound crazy, but people look at people like heroin addicts. This is what we're talking about. And they come in, they get a shot of Narcan in the ER, and we send them back out to the street like they're nobody, just to go out and use again. That's somebody's brother. That's somebody's father. That's somebody's mother. That's somebody's sister. That's somebody's child. Like, let's be more sensitive and really figuring out what is underneath this usage so that we can, you know, we don't care about who's putting it out there in the streets. Let's, you know, let's make them not be in business anymore by eliminating why people need to use.
That's a good point. Right. Boom.
Put them out of business.
Drop the mic. All right, Dr. Gettings.
Yes. So I think my take home message is twofold. For those people who are introduced to medications that are controlled substances, Ask your doctor questions. Never let someone give you a prescription and you don't know what it's doing, what the risks are associated with it. That is the doctor's job, to explain and help you to make an informed decision. Anytime you get a prescription, ask the doctor, is it a controlled substance, and what class is it in, so you know what you're putting in your body. As far as those that are pursuing and obtaining medications that are illicit, that are on the street, they're not coming from doctors. You are playing Russian roulette at this point. 100%. Drugs
100.
ain't the same. We in the GMO drug era now. Okay, everything is juiced up. So you're take it your own risk and educate yourself on the risks, because at the end of the day, we're in a time where one time can really be the last time.
Yeah,
and you got to understand that and not make light of it. It's not a game, and it may be promoted, right? We got songs out here talking about Molly Percocet and all of that, right? I'm a mother of 4. My heart goes out to both of you all. I don't know where you get your strength to do what you've done, but 100%, we have to educate our kids about the dangers of drugs, because it's on a whole nother level,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Gettings. Thank you, Aisha, Melissa, and Sandra. I think that kind of encompassed it. You heard from moms who are telling you like it is, front line. Sandra, who's saying, we got to get rid of the stigma. You got to get these people help. We want to stop it, step by step. If your kids are struggling with any type of mental illness, or you're seeing some things, get them the help so they don't go out and try to find the love in something they don't know what's in it. And so if you guys are, or anyone who's struggling with drug addiction, I want to provide some information on a resource. You can, if you or anyone is struggling with addiction, you can go to, it's called SAM. Say that again, SAMHSA. It's a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.gov, SAMHSA, or you can go to the CDC.gov as well. They'll link to that. They'll have local resources in your state on any type of mental and drug addiction. So definitely take that. Again, log on to thebraintruth.com for additional resources, or to get in touch with some of our Brain Gang members as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that we were able to frame this conversation in a way that you can go off and talk to your family, talk to your loved one, talk to your kids. If you're a teenager or someone young that watched it, are kind of like freaked out now, we hope we did a good job to make you think twice about going to that party and letting that cute dude, let you taste something and tell you it feels good. You won't see tomorrow. Trust and believe it. Look at the statistics, 100,000 people. Okay. So with that being said, I thank you guys. Wish you guys have a good holiday. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. We applaud you for the work you're doing, both of you, in the namesakes in the memory of your wonderful daughters. I want to thank you. So guys, that's a wrap on another episode of thebraintruth.com. Next week, we're going to be talking to Sean Morgan. We talked to Sean Morgan last week. And so next week, John Morgan will be on the show, and we will be talking about his mental health, which he's going to be openly sharing. He is a well-known stand-up comedian. But we're going to talk about his wellness journey and this fundraiser that we are having for the holiday. It's called Libations and Laughter. We're going to actually try to pull off a live comedy show on the Brain Truth, because what does laughter do? Doesn't laughter make you laugh? Does it make you laugh, Derek? I know laughter was one of the big things that was part of my healing. And that kind of brings into play today, laughter, laugh with your family, get them off those phones and talking to people, start playing games, remember we used to do like charades and all kind of stuff with the family. And we got to bring laughter back into our home. So we're going to hope to use laughter for Libations and Laughter for our Christmas special fundraiser. And again, because we need some money. So anyway, I think that's it. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Jesse. I hope you're there. I know Earl Winfrey at the station. I know you guys are watching. And I guess that's it. You got anything to say? Derek is over in the back. Love you too, Rhonda. I see you. Oh, thank you. And thank you, Christine Reed. I saw you too. That's my good girlfriend. Anyway, that's another episode. After I leave here, people, I'm going to be going over to the Clubhouse podcast, where I'll be being interviewed with my ex-husband, Craig Hodges, the former NBA player with the Chicago Bulls. So join me over there. I think you can go on, what is it? Chicago. What is the Facebook? Chicago Clubhouse. I think you can go on Facebook to the Chicago Clubhouse, Chicago, or you maybe go to my Facebook. I'm going to maybe share it on my Facebook. So stay with me. Follow me over there, and then I'll see you next week. And also, I want to talk to you about, you see this big logo back here, this V103, this 107, I'm sorry, 107.3 VIP. I'm going to talk to you guys about that next week. It's a new station that we are with. It's very exciting. So see you guys next week. This is a wrap. I love you guys, Brain Joes. I love you so much. I see you next week, Tuesday at 7:30. Bye.
Tune in to The Brain Truth with Allison Jordan every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. Repair, renew, reclaim.